started streaming. Ready when you are.
Oh, I need my, forgot my gavel. I like using it so much. Meeting will come to order. We welcome you and thank you for being here at the Cache County Council meeting. Today's Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. No? Can you hear me okay? It's delayed, okay. Everybody's got their mics on, okay. Right, so I don't forget, I want to mention that we excuse Executive David Zook. He's not able to be with us today, and our Deputy County Executive, Bryce Mumford, is filling in for him. Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you.
And we will begin tonight with an opening from Councilman David Erickson.
I'd like to have my opening in the form of a prayer. My Father in heaven, we're indeed grateful to be here. We're grateful for each other. We're grateful for those that were able to attend here and online. We're grateful for the opportunities we have in this valley, for the moisture which we have received. And we ask and bless that would bless us with more, to relieve us from the drought that we are experiencing, to help all of us to have bountiful harvests. We're grateful for opportunities we have, again, to respond to the needs of this beautiful, beautiful county, and we pray that we will be able to make good decisions, that their decisions will be based on wisdom and thy inspiration. We pray for thee to bless those that are in harm's way in Afghanistan, and those that are having troubles there, trying to alleviate and to gain the freedoms that they deserve. We pray that thou would bless them. Bless our armed forces, and bless those that look out and protect us here also, and those that respond to calamities, respond to ills and accidents, and those that help us and give us that feeling of security here. We thank thee again for such opportunities to be here, and that we may speak freely and civilly, and we pray for, again, thy inspiration, and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
And if you'll stand, we'll read the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Okay, you've all had a chance to review and approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Well, I'd like to make a motion, Madam Chair, that we review and the approval of the minutes be put down till the end of the meeting, just right before other business, and so that we can give the people that are here time to make their presentations. Pending, looks like there's going to be a discussion of things.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes, but amend that, or I'm sorry, minutes, the agenda, but amend it to move the minutes between initial proposals of action and other business. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we'll move to item 5, which is report of the county executive. I just want to check with you, Bryce. Do you have anything?
The only thing is that, as you mentioned, Mr. Zook's out. He's got some sick kids, and he's quarantining until he can be sure that everything's good to go. So he has to be excused tonight, and we appreciate your understanding.
Thank you, Bryce, appreciate that. Okay, we'll now move to item 6A. We have a report from Senator Lee's office. We have Nate Jackson here from Senator Lee's office. Nate, if you'd like to come up, we'd love to hear from you. His alias, by the way, is Nate the Great. At the podium. Will you make sure that that microphone is turned on? Is it on? Okay.
Testing? Okay, good. Now, I have annual reports for everyone.
I got one in the mail. Look,
You have one also
yeah,
electronically.
sent to us.
Yes,
And you have one.
I have one,
already.
so I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I received one in the mail too. So,
Yeah, did you?
yeah,
Okay.
appreciate it.
I'm gonna reference this one
Oh,
as
then-
I talk. So.
okay.
All right, it's a pleasure to be with you. As Gina said, Nate Jackson with Senator Mike Lee's office. I'm his Northern Utah Director and his Military Affairs Advisor. The way our office is structured, we have area directors, and then each staff has a point of interest that they oversee. And mine is Military and Veterans Affairs. We have other staff that oversee lands issues, agricultural issues, judiciary, commerce, and things like that. First and foremost, you have a beautiful building here. It's a pleasure to stand before you and to talk to you. I noticed my bald spot's getting a little worse. I saw it as we were all standing, but it's...
We got a ways to go.
Yeah, thanks.
Paul and I don't feel bad.
Shouldn't complain.
I think Mr. Lee's a little shiny too, isn't he?
You sure outshine
Yeah, thanks.
your lady.
Well, I don't mean to disrupt the meeting with the joke, but at my own expense. But what I handed to each and every one of you is our office, Senator Mike Lee puts forth an annual report every single year. Now, the first year he was back there, I think the annual report was a few inches thick. No pictures, just text, but now we've kind of made it more user-friendly. And what this report does, it highlights everything, so to speak, that the senator and staff does throughout the year, and kind of highlights the legislation that he puts forth and the bills. And so if you have any questions on that, feel free to get in touch with me or our office. I'd be happy to expound on more of these subjects. But one thing I wanted to point out is we have a page here connecting with Senator Lee's constituents here in Utah. Last year, 87,639 letters sent, 170,713 emails sent, and phone calls, 117,819. And so as you can see, our office, along with all the congressional offices, are very busy. We try to be as responsive as possible with inquiries and getting information out. A few things I want to point out with our offices. So our DC staff mainly handles the legislation, and our Utah staff is really focused on the state. We are the eyes and ears for the senator, and we work closely with the DC staff and the senator to make sure we don't miss anything, that he knows what's going on. And a lot of legislation actually comes out of real issues from counties and cities. And so it's very important for myself as a Northern Utah Director to be aware of the issues going on, so that we can potentially help on a federal level if that is needed. We also have a number of staff who do casework, and casework basically means if you have a problem with the federal agency, if you're a veteran, you can't get through to the VA or whatnot, we have staff that will help cut through the red tape. And so the reason why I say all this is I just want everyone in this room to know that we're a resource, that you can use us anytime you want. Even if you're unsure, we're always here to try to answer your questions and get you the help you need. A few just highlights. I was looking recently, and the Senate just passed the Senator Lee's Pilt Amendment, and that's a pretty big deal. Pilt means payment in lieu of taxes. Pretty much every county in here with so much federal land owned in the state of Utah, our communities don't get those, they can't develop those properties to get the tax revenue, to have good schools and to support their cities. And so Pilt, basically the federal government will say, okay, we're gonna give this so much money back to this community, money that they would have made. The problem is it's about 1% of what the community would actually make. And so we're really happy to see that pass, and that will kind of open the door to increase that funding and to give these communities what they actually should be getting, improve our schools and whatnot.
Is that retroactive?
What's that?
Can that be retroactive?
You know, I'm not sure yet.
That would be
But
awesome.
more information will be forthcoming. So this basically opens the door for that. And a couple other things, NEPA reform is huge on the senator's list. Every single time there's a project with the federal government involved, it increases the cost quite a bit. And so we want to reform that. So we actually, this huge infrastructure bill that just passed the Senate, if we really want to put those dollars to good use, we need to cut down some of this red tape and allow these communities to get, to start these projects more quickly. A couple things here. I think I'm about out of time, but a few things that the senator is really kind of focused on: military spouse licensing, wildfire prevention, health savings accounts. These are a couple of the hot items that he's working on. Increasing child tax credits, charitable deduction increases, Religious Freedom, Antiquities Act. These are some of the issues that we're really focused on right now. Drone legislation. I've been in a few meetings earlier about figuring out how we can protect property rights with drone usage in the future. But that's pretty much it, and I'll take any questions. I don't want to go over my time, so.
Thanks, Nate. Council, do you have any questions?
Still doing the green jello, isn't he?
Not right now because of COVID.
Oh.
But hopefully that starts back
COVID.
out.
Green jello is COVID-free. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's what we all figured, but,
Keep putting in a plug for the wildfire prevention. We really need
Okay.
that here, for sure.
okay. I will do that. And there's some stipulations. The feds aren't allowing DOI to use drones to fight wildfires, to see where the fire's moving and things like that. And so we actually had a meeting earlier today to try to work past that. So we have all the tools needed to fight these things.
Great.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
on your page 27, it talks about Senator Lee is trying to talk to people about silencing free speech on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. Did I read a report the other day that says Taliban and those others have not been censored?
Yeah, I saw that too.
Is that true, or what are we doing about that?
I can't speak to the truth of that. I saw a report on that. I'd be happy to take that back to the senator and get you a clear answer.
Based on what's gone on in the country, it would seem that certainly should be silenced.
Absolutely. I guess the best way to answer that, based on the past, it's true. But I'll look into it and get you a good answer.
It'd be interesting to see if that can be done.
Yeah, and it's aggravating when these tech companies, they're private companies, yet they insert themselves so much into our political process. But then when they allow,
Yeah, that sort of thing.
terrorist
almost
groups
seems
to-
like they have a platform of.
yeah, that's exactly what the senator is very concerned about.
Yep.
So,
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate you being here.
thank you. And I'll give each one of you my contact card as well.
That'd be wonderful. Okay, next we have a report from Congressman Blake Moore's office, and we have Shari Pippett. How do you pronounce your last name?
Sherry?
Oh, Sherry, okay.
Yeah, and I give your county executive a hard time since he's not here. He was my boss for 4.5 years, and he allowed your agenda to go out with my name spelled wrong.
Yeah, so sorry about that. That was on Janine and I. Our apologies about that.
It's all right.
Thanks for being here.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a rough couple of weeks in our office. We've gotten a lot of phone calls, including some that directly impact individuals here in Cache County, about some things that are going on in Afghanistan. You know, sometimes people say that the things that they do are are a matter of life and death. And, you know, a lot of times you think that's kind of hyperbole, but over the last 2 weeks, it has become very real. And in a lot of respects, the things that, you know, our office and the senators' offices are being asked to help with, they really are a matter of life and death right now. So we appreciate the continued support that we receive from our constituents, from the counties. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without knowing that that you guys are there with the boots on the ground stuff. I also want to make a little bit of a public apology. The Congressman had intended to be here in Cache County tonight doing a town hall. As some of you were aware, he was recalled to Washington, D.C., and so we've had to postpone that until later this fall. And apparently our office didn't do as good of a job at communicating that as we ought to have. So on behalf of the Congressman, I want to apologize to the residents who are over at the Cache County Event Center frustrated that we are not there.
Acknowledge me anymore if I wasn't there.
Yeah, that's one word for it. Anyways, I just want to highlight some of the things that the Congressman has been doing because of, for lack of a better term, failures on the part of the administration to orchestrate an orderly withdrawal in the days leading up to Afghanistan. The withdrawal from Afghanistan, just this past week, Congressman Moore introduced legislation, the Afghanistan Accountability Act, feeling that the American people deserve to know what went wrong in the days and months leading up to withdrawal from Afghanistan. I'm sure no one is unaware of the what's going on there, the pictures that we're seeing on media, the cases that we're hearing, you know, pictures of infants being handed over barricades to U.S. Army soldiers and children asleep with camo jackets on. There's been a lot of sleep lost over it and a lot of frustrations. So to try and facilitate getting some answers to what's gone on, Congressman Moore introduced that legislation into the House last week. Other legislative priorities that we have had, we're still really optimistic about passage of the Bear River National Heritage Area Study Act. I passed out of the House Natural Resources Committee unanimously in July. We are still pushing towards and hopeful that we'll be able to get it on the House calendar. And we've had some preliminary conversations about it with our counterparts in the Senate. Congressman Moore and Jim Risch introduced the Fire Sheds Act, and as we've seen fires burn across the summer, blessedly in Utah we haven't had, is this wood? We haven't had as severe fires this summer, in part because so many residents have heeded requests that have come to cut back on things like that. But as wildfires do continue to burn, that legislation becomes increasingly important because it removes some of the bureaucratic barriers between federal and state land managers working together and improving that coordination so we can see a more coordinated, targeted effort of fighting wildfires. I know something that was of significant concern and could have had a drastic impact on Cache County, particularly on Logan City, was the move that OMB was making towards redefining metropolitan areas. It would have significantly impacted funding for projects in Logan. The OMB did back down on that, and we've stayed in close contact with Logan City about that. As far as a couple funding projects that we were able to secure funding for in Cache County, we were able to secure funding in the House for the CVTD, upgrading and improving some of the buses, extending the services, and also at Utah State University. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Center for Anticipatory Intelligence that's up there, but Jeannie Johnson up at the university is doing some fantastic work with students across a variety of disciplines. Excuse me. And so we were able to secure funding. It does still, in the House, it does still need to pass the Senate, but we're hopeful And we're excited for the possibilities that those projects and improvements will bring to Cache County. And then the last thing, I don't know how many of you know Congressman Moore very well. He is very much a people person. I have seen him walk into a room of mostly strangers and walk out with several new best friends. He continues to build strong relationships with people not only on his committees, but in different caucuses throughout the House and in different sectors of jurisdiction throughout both the House and the Senate. And for someone who is a freshman in the minority party, his level of influence, his ability to connect far outstrips most of the other freshmen in his similar situations. And then just this summer, some things that we've been doing. Tonight, notwithstanding, we've been able to conduct some really productive town hall meetings. I was at one in Kaysville with him last week where we had enough people in Kaysville's city council room that if the fire department had come in, there's a good chance we were probably over fire code. But we had all the doors open and everybody was great. We've done mobile office hours in Cache County. We've done them in all the counties, all 10 counties in the district. He has done a telephone town hall. We're constantly reaching out to people through his weekly newsletter that he sends out through email. If you guys aren't signed up for it, give our office a call. And we're doing anything and everything we can to maximize his time in the district and see that he's able to spend time with different constituent groups. Regretfully, this will be my only presentation on his behalf to the county council. My last day with the congressman is the end of next week. I've actually been hired as the community development director in West Haven. But I hope you guys feel like you can always reach out to our office. We want to hear from you. We want to know the goods and the bads, the highs and the lows. And truly, we want to know what you need from us because it's what keeps us going and sometimes keeps us up at night. So anyways, if you have any quick questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Council, do you have any questions? Looks like not. Sherry, thank you so much for being here and good luck in your new job.
Thank you. My excitement is tempered because working for your congressman, I worked for Congressman Bishop for a year first. It truly has been the greatest honor of my professional career. Cache County is really, really blessed and really lucky. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, item 6C, Century Farm presentation. Jake Hadfield.
All right, thank you guys for letting me come here for just a quick minute and be able to take a couple minutes of your time. For those, I think everyone knows me, but just to be sure, my name is Jake Hadfield. I'm with USU Extension. I'm the ag faculty there, so I work with the agriculture producers throughout the county and kind of work with university resources to kind of combine those two together. What are you looking for? Oh, I thought you were looking for something for me. Anyway, so one of the great privileges that I have is I actually get to award Century Farm Awards to our farm and ranches that have been here for over 100 years. Now, these Century Farm Awards, they actually go to the farmers and ranchers who their farms and ranches have stayed in the same family, have been around for 100 years. And, you know, I think that's something we really have to think about, 100 years and how long that is, especially in Utah, where we're seeing a lot of our state identity changing, as we used to be a really heavy agriculture state, and we are slowly switching over to more of an urban, more populated state. And so a lot of these Century Farms, it's huge that they've been here this long, that they've been involved. Another thing is we also try to farm in the desert, so that's another battle we're facing every day with droughts and different things. But luckily today, the Century Farm Award that we're going to be presenting this year is going to go to one of your county councilmen in Gordon Zillis and his family for the Zillis Dairy. And so They actually received the Century Farm Award, so I usually present, we get a sign, get a different things, but we actually presented this at the county fair. And if you have that picture, if you'll, there it goes. You can see there, we presented it there, just because all of the family was there and everything. So just more to make it a family deal there. Now, I'm going to turn the time over to Gordon for a couple comments, but before I do that, I'm just going to read kind of the farm history so you guys get an idea here. So, the Zillis Dairy Farm began when Andrew Nilsson purchased property in Cache County in 1916. Andrew and his wife Florence were never able to have children, but luckily a nephew, Rex Zillis, was sent to help on the dairy farm. A lot of Rex's childhood was spent working on the dairy farm, and he became like an adopted child to both Andrew and Florence. In 1953, after Rex married his wife Betty Lou, they moved into living quarters attached to Uncle Andrew and Aunt Florence's house, so Rex could continue working on the farm. Soon Rex and Betty Lou started their own family, and when their second son was born, they named him Gordon Andrew after Andrew himself. Years later, Andrew passed away from a farming accident, and Florence passed away less than a year after his death. The dairy and property fell to Florence's surviving siblings. They determined that Rex should receive both the dairy and the farm ground because he had been running the farming operations for decades. In 1967, the farm was transferred into Rex Zillis' name. As Rex and Betty Lou raised their 5 children on their farm, their son Gordon showed interest in purchasing it. Luckily, Cindy agreed that farming was going to be a part of their future, and they purchased the land from Rex in 1978 and built an updated milking parlor and corrals just down the street. Gordon and Cindy raised all 5 of their children on the family farm. Gordon even named his only son Andrew after his great-uncle, the original namesake of the family farm. Over time, the dairy grew to have 200 milking cows with numerous heifers and calves. Just before I finish, I'd like to read just a real quick family note. This kind of came from the family and when they were giving me all this information, but it just says, as the subdivisions and houses creep closer and closer and the cows slowly find new homes, we would like this award to be a reminder and celebration of a century of cows and kids that were raised on Zillis Dairy. So I think that deserves a round of applause for them. Comments?
Thank you, Nate. When we were at the county fair, they presented it like Nate said, and so I spoke for a while and explained to everybody how the farm actually ended up from a Nelson to a Zillis. And I also mentioned that in my pedigree, there's 5 century farmers in my pedigree. My challenge is that my family always went to the bottom side of the pedigree, and so, there was no way to tag into them. But I've got a century farmer in my family that's a Parker and a Cooper and a Yonk and an Anderson. And so we're deep into agriculture, but like I said, we always ended up on the bottom side, and it hadn't been for not an official adoption, but a family adoption. Then the family came into our being, and what a wonderful place it has been for me to raise my family. The picture that you see up there has got 5 daughters and 1 son, and out of them all, the son probably had the least amount of interest in the farm, so he went on and got a degree in accounting, but all the girls and he all learned how to farm. They can drive grain trucks and corn trucks. They can use mirrors and back up. And if they ever go on a young men, young women activity, if they have to drive somebody's vehicle, they're the first choice to drive the vehicle because of all their experience. But it's great to be in agriculture. I think everyone probably knows that due to an inability to keep a milking crew in the farm, that I sold all the cows about a month ago. But I still got all the land that I'm running, and I still got all the heifers, and I'll be in animals for a long time yet. But what a great program it is to honor farm families that's been here 100 years. I talked to Spencer Gibbons at the fair. I says, how come your family has never done it? Because they've got definitely 100 years of Gibbons farming. But he said, we don't know how to do it. He said the original farm was there on Highway 91, just barely south of Logan. That's where High Gibbons had his farm. And then it was about like in 58 or something, the Gibbons moved to Lewiston. But I'm going to talk to Nate here, and I'm almost certain that we can work out something that where those Gibbons, where they've been in agriculture for well over 100 years, that they should be honored as well, but they might have to have their arm twisted a little bit because it's a pretty important award. But thanks to all of you and all those of the people in the county that has been interacting with agriculture, and especially that's interacted with my farm and my children and what we're doing. We did have this year at the county fair the Reserve Grand Champion Dairy Heifer that was sold. And of course I'm partial, but I thought she was the best heifer there, you know. And but anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for all your service. I mean, you just shared it with 5 families that are all all Century Farms. I mean, that is just, think about how much that affected our ag economics here in the valley.
That's
so
right.
That is crucial. So anyway, I just want to thank you for letting me come and share this award and spend this time with you guys. If you ever have any questions or anything, please reach out to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Gordon, I'm guessing you don't need your picture with the council, like we traditionally do. You already have one.
Well, you know how it is.
That's a pretty good picture of a select sire right there, isn't it?
Well, you know, it's quite interesting that a dairy farmer
Right up there.
would kind of like to have.
A proven select sire.
Well, you know, I'll tell you a story after I tell you this one, but it's really interesting that a dairy
These
farmer
guys
would
don't
have
understand what I'm talking about.
four daughters before he got a son, but you know, you still need their help, and so every one of those daughters, like I say, they all know how to milk cows, they all know how to do all the things that you do on a farm. And the oldest daughter is still in dairying over in Honeyville. She's got her own dairy over there. But Dave Erickson is making fun about a proven sire, but one of the things that maybe this isn't appropriate at council meeting, but
Probably not.
Careful.
Chair's ready
one
to
of
go
the
in
things
order.
that when you are trying to select, my herd was a herd of registered Holsteins, and so I had spent 50 years selecting the very best sires to cross with the cows to improve the herd. And the one thing that you want is you want a sire that will throw heifer calves, and you want a sire that's calving-y so that there's no calving problems. Well, every one of those daughters came into this world at about 7 pounds, and I had, 4 daughters and 1 son, so I would have been considered a very good Holstein sire. So anyway, those things probably shouldn't be shared.
Too late.
Anyway, that's another thing that they'll talk about, things that I say at council meeting that makes everybody shake their head.
Herald Journal tomorrow.
Oh, well, congratulations on the Century Farm. That's really neat.
Council.
Okay,
Well,
so,
in Gordon's defense, really quick, one of the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, was a huge proponent of agriculture and talked about how that was just a solid thing to be. And having members of this council that have been so involved in agriculture, I can see the wisdom that he had and how great it is to have those folks here. So thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Dave.
any other comments? Okay. Well, it's past 5:30, so we will move, and we'll come back to those other things in between, but we need to move to our public hearings, item number 9. So council, we need to set 2 public hearings, and then we can move to a public hearing on ordinance 2021-18.
Move to set public hearing resolution 2021-18, September 14th, 6 p.m.
Second it.
And I guess in the next one, right?
Yes, and the
And
next one.
2021-20, September 14th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to set 2 public hearings, one for resolution 2021-18, the other ordinance 2021-20, both for September 14th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we now move to item 9C, which is a public hearing on ordinance 2021-18. An ordinance to vacate any public right-of-way south of roughly 9500 South on the road now in place and known as 200 West Street near Paradise, Utah, and between lots 18 and 19 on the east and lots 14, 15, 16, and 17 on the west in Block 4 of the map of Paradise City, plats AB Old Paradise, and blocks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, Plat A, Paradise Farm Survey by J.H. Martineau County Surveyor. John, do you want to give us a little update on this in case it inspires anyone to make a comment from the public?
Can we do an HDMI cable? I'll zoom out far enough for everyone to get their bearings. This is Paradise. And as we zoom in on Paradise, just south of Paradise along, there's the city boundary. As you come along here, this is 200 West. I'll show you that, and then this is the original town survey by Martineau back in the 1800s. And if you look right here, coming out of the town, there's kind of a gap in the survey. But then you pick up down here, and there's lots in this block with a right-of-way seeming to be indicated right through here. If you overlay this old survey onto our parcel viewer, there's where the city ends, and that right-of-way on the old survey would come down through this field. We've discussed with you in previous meetings that the landowners here are wanting to develop on this parcel, and there's been an arrangement worked out that in exchange for these three adjoining landowners to dedicate an easement for a turnaround for county vehicles, for snow removal, buses, other public uses, an easement here, that the county would vacate any right-of-way that it may own, and it is somewhat in dispute as to whether the county does own it. The county maintains that we may. Other property owners here would maintain that we don't. So in exchange for the easement, where the county would vacate any right-of-way that it may own coming down through here. And we've talked with you before about with Matt from Public Works and Chris from Development, that we don't see a need for that right-of-way or to fight for it, and that it's in the interest of the county to obtain the easement rather than maintain potentially have a right-of-way that continues on. So the ordinance would be to go ahead and vacate the right-of-way to the extent that it exists down through there. And I'm happy to take questions on that. Given the indication from the council previously in an informal way that you would likely be amenable to this ordinance, the development has proceeded to the extent that they have put in the turnaround already.
How much maintenance have we been doing on that road for the 100 years that we've had it?
That's a better question for Matt. What I do know is that right now it's Paradise that's doing the maintenance for us, and they're doing snow maintenance down that road.
John, did you say that the turnaround has already been put in place?
They've at least begun. I'm not sure if it's fully in place, but they've begun clearing the circle and things.
It's a deadhead road.
It's a
right?
what?
It's a deadhead road, in other words, it goes to nowhere.
Goes to nowhere.
But does it have the potential to loop around somewhere, or?
Oh, that's what we've determined, that all of that surrounding land is owned by the same family. That family doesn't have intent to, at this time, to sell or develop. Even if we had the right-of-way, it would essentially just take us right down here to the river bottom, but it does not extend on through over this direction to where there is another county road. So
But any
there
further-
really isn't a need for it. And if they were to develop or sell the land to someone who would develop,
have to then.
they'd have to go ahead and dedicate
At
it.
their costs?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
what
why this seems like a good arrangement
I
for
don't see any
everyone.
burden. I think some burden will be taken from the county at that point, rather than expectations of maintenance and everything later,
Exactly.
so.
Thank you, John. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to the council about this item?
Move to close the public hearing. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, I forgot to say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We will now move back to item 6D, Cache Mosquito Abatement District Report, and we have Richard Rigby here to give that to us. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. How are you, Mr. Mumford? I had Mr. Mumford's son in my class last year, so I also teach fourth grade. I'm actually surprised that this is the first time I've been asked to come, so, and I do better in front of 9 and 10-year-olds than adults, so.
Have you hung around with Gordon and Dave? It's about the same.
After listening to that, it sounds, but I appreciate that.
And me too. I should put that on there. I'm with that kid.
If you noticed at the orchestra the other night, there wasn't very many mosquitoes, so we must have done something right that night. Many of you know that in 2004, the Mosquito Abatement District was started with the different entities, and then over time, those more entities came in. The only points of that we do not cover in our district is Paradise, River Heights, Logan, and College Young Ward. Other than that, we cover from Porcupine Reservoir to the Lewiston border. In 2005 until 2010, we were part of the district, contracted with the health department up to that time. When in 2005, we didn't have the funds because the tax money comes in a little bit later, the year after, and the West Nile virus was coming into this way. And so the CDC had given the health department some money to start to do something. And so we contracted with the health department at that time. And then in 2010, we went our separate ways. And then that's when I became the manager in 2010. We have gone, depending on what we've done, 70% of what our program is larviciding, and then 30% is where the PR is. Most of you probably see the foggers at night and hear the foggers. Back until about 2012, we were using malathion, but at the same time, we were also using a product in our larvicide. It was called Abatement, which was an organophosphate, and malathion is also an organophosphate. So we had to change to something out because Abatement was such a good product for our larviciding that we went to Control 3030, and that's what we've been using since. And we've since changed. Abatement is not available anymore, so we've gone to another couple of products that have a bacteria product. But most of what we do is, some of you may have seen us around your properties or things like that, is our larviciding program. And what we do is we get our first line of defense is trying to kill the larva instead of trying to get them when they're adults, because we got a much better effectiveness when they're larvae. And there's about three types of things that we use for that larviciding. We have some granules that all have a bacteria that back in the, I believe in the 50s, they found this bacteria in Israel, and it mixes with the pH of the mosquitoes' belly, and it kills the mosquito larvae when they ingest it. And then the other product we have is an oil product that is, again, specific for mosquito abatement, that when they're in this, there's 4 stages of the larva, and when they're in the 4th stage, they're not eating anymore, so we use, and they have to breathe from the surface, so we use an oil that dissipates in like 2 or 3 days, that suffocates them, along with the pupa. And that's pretty effective. And then the last thing we do, and this is more for ponds, like ornamental ponds, cow and horse troughs, things like that, is a product called Alticid, and it lasts for anywhere, depending on the size of it, 30 to 180 days. And what that does is it's a growth hormone regulator. As the larva, when they are hatched from the egg, those larvae have a high hormone, and as that hormone drops, it tells them to go into the next instar in the larva stage. And then by the 4th instar, before they go into the pupa, what that Alticid does is it keeps that hormone just high enough that it keeps them into the juvenile stage, so they die a juvenile. In fact, I've seen it. I did an experiment when my kids were younger. We had a kiddie pool that they weren't using, so I left the water in and threw one of them in, and you could see them trying to change from a larva to a pupa, and they would half mutate, and it would kill them that way too. So those things are pretty effective, and everything that we use is environmentally friendly and so Alticid we use in horse troughs and things like that because it's okay for domesticated animals and things like that to use. The other products we use also, and it doesn't kill the macroinvertebrates as well. So last thing we want to do is to kill the beneficial insects and things like that. Now our fogging program, the things that's the control that we use is a permethrin based. Same type of chemical that chrysanthemums have, and so it's derived from the same chemical compound. And a lot of people think that we should be coming out 10 to 15 times a week, especially this year, depends on where you live. But we've got to be careful with how we spray, because if you spray too much, then your insects become resistant to what we're doing. And so we've got to be conscientious of that. But many people don't recognize that there's over 3,000 species of mosquitoes. Everybody thinks a mosquito is a mosquito. Here in the valley, we got about 5 to 7 species. 2 of them carry the West Nile virus. They are the Culex species, the Culex pipian, the Culex tarsalis, and there's also one other one, but they're all Culex, and then the rest of them are mostly Aedes and Anopheles. And the Aedes species is more of a day biting, so if you're out in the garden getting eaten in the daytime, it's an Aedes species, and that Aedes species will lay its eggs in soft mud, and the Culex species lays it in a raft on the water. The Culex, or the Aedes species, will lay them singly in a soft mud, but then they can go dormant. Those eggs can go dormant for 7 to 10 years. And so until the water hits them, they can stay there, and I think a little bit that's what's going on this year in parts of the valley. And then because they're day biting, they like to sit up under vegetation, and so spraying at night, I could spray 5 times a week and still not, some of them will be up, but not as much. And so we've been getting a lot of calls, and the state of Utah, and Nathan may talk about this too because he's heard a little bit about it, is as dry as it is this year, the state of Utah has seen an uptick in mosquitoes for some reason. They have to have water to go through their cycle. It is dry year, but they'll find water. I had a farmer out in Newton. I live out in Newton. He talked about one of the things that he sees is that with these pivots, we'll go treat a pivot where the wheels go, but then he's having to water, instead of every 2 weeks, he's watering a little bit sooner, which then pushes what we put out off to the side, and it fills in again. And they can go from in this hot weather, they can go from a egg to an adult in 3 to 5 days, if the environmental conditions are correct. So it's been a challenge this year in some ways, but it's been also good to be able to educate. The other problem that we're seeing with fogging, the mosquitoes have to be up and flying at the time, but the smoke has been causing some problems, we think. And the reason is every year we calibrate our foggers, and they have to be within a certain micron, be able to, those little droplets to hit the mosquitoes. And a little tidbit with that, the stuff that we're using is called ULV, which means ultra low volume. Most of what you guys are seeing as it goes out is mineral oil. It's the carrier agent that carries the fog, so it doesn't, when it gets blown out, it doesn't just dissipate right in the air from the heat or something. So the active ingredient is about the size of your thumbnail in a football field, is all that is being sprayed out. So very minimal, and it does an effective job. But what we think is happening is that as it's going out, those microns are small enough, but then they hit the smoke particles, which creates a bigger micron, and as it hits those smoke particles, then it's dropping faster. So it's kind of the perfect storm this year between everything that we've hit. So that's kind of what our purpose is, and we can't get rid of all of them. I wish I could say we could. I know Benson is wishing that I could spray 4 nights a week. I can only do 2 nights a week. Our challenge right now is the growth of the county. Before, 10 years ago, I could do Nibley and Millville in 1 night. Now next year I've got to figure out how to do just Nibley by itself in that area. And then the other areas of the county, we've got 4 foggers that go out 4 nights a week. And that's our biggest challenge right now, is trying to cover everything and then trying to make sure that we're hitting those areas where most of the water, like Benson and through there. I tease Nathan because I think most of our mosquitoes from Wellsville and Mendon are coming from College Young Ward, but he gets to come after me though. So,
Here's a question for you. We've had quite a few of the citizens in College Young Ward that's claiming that we have had the worst infestation of mosquitoes this year that they can remember. So why in a dry year are we having so many more mosquitoes?
That's a great question, and so I don't have any anecdotal evidence of this, but my thoughts are, with it being so dry, and I kind of got this thought about 3-4 weeks ago when we had that big rainstorm that came through the valley. In Paradise, I think, got like 3 inches of rain or something, and you can agree or disagree with me, but my thoughts are, the hydrologist, KVNU interviewed a hydrologist at the time and said, well, as hot as it is, the ground is so hard and dry right now that when it rains, it's not soaking into the ground quick enough. And so it's sitting on top, and then so many farmers right now are, because it hasn't rained, they're having to flood a little bit more. And then that water sits on top, and this is where we're seeing in Nibley, actually, those pasture lands. And the Aedes mosquito is a pasture mosquito, and those pastures are getting flooded, and then that water's sitting longer. And then you got the daytime where it's heating up, and then you got 3 to 5 days, so that's sitting, and then all of it's coming up, and they're hatching because of those dormant eggs. And so that's, I think, a lot of the fogging, because a lot of these are those Aedes species that are coming out during the day. And you talk to any district in the state, they say that the Aedes species is the most calls that they get from people. They're the hardest to get, and they're the hardest to take care of just because of the type of mosquito they are. So.
I'm thinking in my mind, and I know nothing about mosquitoes, mosquitoes other than they bite.
Me neither, so I teach school,
But,
fourth grade.
Are we in a situation where it's been so blasted hot this year, and it stays hot for a long, long, long time into the night? Are we not getting the mosquitoes to fly until, closer to morning than when the sun goes down?
We could. We have always found that because we can fog, and the label says that we can fog from dusk to dawn. And so we usually have always done from the sun down to when we're done with it. When I set the traps, I put out 16 traps around the valley every Monday night and then pick them up Tuesday morning. And then we count and speciate them as part of what we do. The speciation part, we counted, to tell you the amount that we're counting is 3 weeks ago we counted 3,500 mosquitoes out of those 16 traps. And with it cool this week, she said we're down to about 1,500. And then, so we're catching them in the night, but when I pick them up, I'm seeing them. I see the mosquitoes flying when I put out the traps, but I'm not seeing them when I'm picking them up in the mornings. So again, I don't have the anecdotal evidence of that, but we're trying to, those Culex species especially, that's the main ones that we're trying to hit because of the West Nile virus. And the week of the fair, I did put out a press release to the state, and you might have seen it in KSL and other media outlets, that Benson tested positive. But the virus is a weird virus because it tested positive in Benson that week, but then last week, I still sent vials down to the state health lab, and they came back negative, but then Lewiston tested positive this last week. So,
Guys getting around.
so yeah.
Hard to determine what to do.
It is, and that's why we encourage everybody to wear those long sleeves. I know as hot and miserable as it is, but to wear your long sleeves and pants. Make sure you're using repellent at night, things like that. And then the biggest thing after this rain, I had my son go around our house a couple of days ago after it rained to eliminate any standing water around your house. And this could be anything. It could be flower pots that have water sitting in the bottom of it. It could be rain gutters. Many of us don't think of rain gutters as having water sitting in them because they're supposed to drain, but rain gutters, the Culex pipian mosquito can lay its egg. It's such a small mosquito that it can lay its egg in a paint can lid. That's all the water it needs. Or a Coke bottle cap or anything like that. Now, that's not going to produce a lot of mosquitoes, but one mosquito can lay 400 eggs in at one time, and it can do that 3 times. So that's just one mosquito, and then the female is the only one that bites, and the reason why they bite is because the protein in the blood for their eggs is the reason. So that's why we encourage everybody to wear those long sleeves and they have to be proactive.
Bites, is that what you're trying to tell me?
The male does not.
It's kind of the way nature is, isn't it?
I'm not going to. I've had my fair share of jokes, but the male mosquito only eats nectar because they're mellow and nice. I did say it.
You're gonna stick your foot in your mouth.
I am. You started it. The male mosquito only eats nectar, and and the other type of thing that's kind of ironic is the female only mates one time, and then after that. So many of you have probably heard of they're trying to get sterile male mosquitoes out, and what they're trying to do is once they mate, the anatomy of the female's mosquitoes will turn up so that they can't mate again. And so that's what the purpose of those sterile mosquitoes are, so that they'll go out and mate, but then they're not fertilizing the eggs. So that hasn't got up to our neck of the woods yet. But that's what you might have heard it in Florida when the Zika virus was coming in, things like that. So, Dave?
There is quite a few honey operations, bees, backyard bees and everything. does any of these products, do they affect those in any way?
The larviciding does not. The control will, and that's the other reason we fog at night as well, because that's the last thing I want to do is take care, eliminate any bees or anything. So, and it depends on the type of beekeeper you are. You know, we've got a no spray list that every citizen has to every year reapply for that. It doesn't, once you sign up, it's not a lifetime no spray list. You have to re-sign up for that every year. But we've got a lot of beekeepers that will tell us that it doesn't affect them because we're spraying at night. And then we've got some of the hobby beekeepers that are worried about it. And so we try to accommodate however they want to do it. But yeah, when we do have a no spray list that we turn the fogger off when we go by their home. If we see bees or something.
I have a guy that has hives on my place, and when I go out and do spraying for weevil, things like that, he just says, let me know, and so he goes over there and he
just covers it.
Tells them, hey, it's night, and so he'll put a drape over it and wet it down, and he says he might lose 1 or 2 bees.
Yeah.
He's got several hives there, so.
Yeah, and so
they can control those things pretty easy if they just
they
know.
do,
So.
and but again, that's the other reason, because the label, that's probably the biggest reason why the label on those adulticide is the spray at night is because of the bees. Yeah. And they are in their hives by that time. Once that sun drops, the bees are pretty well.
Spray during the day, you'd want to have ice cream truck music on your thing.
That would work, huh? Yeah. So.
Okay, any other further questions?
I'm glad we invited you here. We had, you're a taxing entity and whatnot, so you're supposed to report, but I've been here a lot of years, and this is the first time I ever remember having the mosquito.
That's what like I said, I'm surprised actually that this was the first time, and David actually texted me, and one of you two, I think, was it you, Gina, that asked about it? So I'm glad to come, and like I said, I do better in front of 9 and 10-year-olds, but.
Well, you did great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, the next item is the College Young Mosquito Abatement District Report from Nathan Dawes.
Put your hand over your heart when you talk about college and young.
Just young mostly. So first, Jake, I'm going to apologize to you for Gordon, because I was talking to him before the meeting, and I think that's why he kept calling you Nate.
Would that call you Nate?
Only 3 times. It's okay. And then Richard, you can thank me for getting that contract to go from the Bear River Health Department so you guys could grow like you have, because I was the first human case of West Nile in Cache County.
I was going to say, I heard you had it. You did have it.
Not all that bad after about 6 or 8 weeks, so.
That's what happened.
Kind of like COVID a little bit?
I haven't had that yet. Hopefully I don't get that, so yeah. But yeah, Nathan Dowgs, I'm on the board of the College Young Mosquito Abatement District. We're not nearly as organized or financially supported as the Cache Mosquito District. For the past, I've only been on that board for just over a year. For the past 12 or more years, the only thing our district has done is the fogging. And mostly because we spend about half our budget just to buy the chemical, and the other half pays someone to drive that fogger twice a week, all summer long. This last year, we did go through the taxation and increase our tax by 25%, which is a pretty big jump. I think at my house that went up about $30 or something just for that line item. And so this year was the first year we started putting out those briquettes, the larvicide. We'll probably double that amount again next year and continue more of that. We were hoping this year would be a good year to see if that made a difference. But as Richard said, across the state, all the mosquito districts are seeing this year as one of their worst mosquito years. And I don't think anybody has the answer of why that is. But we'll continue to do that, because that one, they're fairly inexpensive and they last all year. So I volunteer a week of nights of my time after work to go put those out, and then go out after people start to irrigate to put them in more of those wet areas so we know where they need to be. We'll expand that again next year. But if we can start to control more of those, and then slowly cut back the fogging so we have a little more budget to expand that other part. But the fogging, if you go to once a week, we'll start to get a lot of calls. But if they hear that fogger go by, so I told them we'll just start driving it, but we won't put chemical in it, because I think they'll still think the mosquitoes are gone the next day, because it only lasts, about 24 hours is all you really have a noticeable difference after that fogger goes by, if the breeze is going the right direction. When our roads are a mile apart, it's hard to make much of a dent in that square mile in the middle of that with that fogger.
If I may, those foggers aren't calibrated to 300 feet.
Yeah, so when we're out there, we go from the Mendon Highway to 1800 South, and that's the only road we can cover in that whole area. And then west of 3200 West, we can't really do anything, and that's probably where a majority of our mosquitoes are being grown. Unless we switch to aerial fogging, it's pretty limited to what we can do. But we'll continue to do, try to follow the science, and I talked to Richard about it, because our board was pretty adamant that we're just going to keep fogging. And I said, well, you can't do the same thing and expect better results. We've got to start to change how we're doing it.
So are you coming up east of 32, east of the highway up 32 my way?
I
have not heard you or smelt you ever this summer.
I don't know where. I'll have to look at the map, because as Nibley annexes, our area gets smaller and Richard area gets bigger. And so we go to the city boundaries is where we end. And so we're continuing to lose ground and lose funding where he's getting more. So he should be covering in front of your house.
No, I'm still in the county, and that's why.
Just your house is? How far down that road?
You gotta go a little bit east to the end of my property, and then you hit the subdivisions that starts Nibley. And like I say,
I'll have to ask our driver.
And everybody in our community that's up by me is just getting ate up. And I said, I don't believe I've heard them go by this year. Are you still using the same noisy thing? And
It's the same one with a little light bleeping on top, and
well, it's
yeah.
a pretty good thing, because when you used to come through, you'd hear that crazy thing, just about the time he's trying to go to sleep.
Yeah, about 11 or 12 o'clock he'll come by.
About a minute later, you'd start to smell the stuff coming in your house, and so we got all the mosquitoes killed inside as well. But like I say, I'm questioning.
So he's probably not, I'm betting, I'll call him and see, I'm betting he thinks, because he doesn't go down, Brian Hanson's road and stuff, that's now Logan City boundary, and so I'm betting he thought that, and where Nibley's come across there at Peterson Farm Store, or whatever it is now.
You tell Wally that he and I are gonna have a come to
I'll tell Wally he's gotta hit your house every other day to catch up.
I used to have them where they'd come right in and drive down the cow mangers, they turned around and headed out, so.
Well, if they have a good route, they'll come down and go down along the river and out back on the highway for you.
They can even do that, but, so you're the one that's supposed to be spraying me, and you're not doing it.
He's probably supposed to come to your house, and I'm supposed to come the other way. You should be getting double fogged, probably.
Shouldn't I?
We'll double your tax, just to make sure.
Did you used to do Malphine years ago?
Yeah, years ago, so you won't even smell it now.
Oh, yeah, so that it won't smell.
Yeah.
And the other part of that with Malphine, in order to get those microns, you have to run that RPM up on that machine way up, and so you could hear us coming from miles
Oh,
away.
yeah, you can
And
hear it.
it lost his,
Now we can control the RPMs are dropped, because it's,
That noise is job security for you guys, whether you know it or not.
I know.
not for us, because we do it for free. So it's not job security for our district.
So it's really kind of like a district inside of the big district?
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there some efficiency that we could change there for you?
Well, we figure as Nibley and Logan come west, we're gonna disappear eventually anyways.
Okay. Well, I'm just,
Yeah.
Well, we
because
want you all
that's
to
kind of what's
know.
happening anyway, but it's still, you kind of go, here we're covering everything, and all of a sudden,
In some ways.
you have special.
I wasn't involved with when they did that. I think College Young just wanted to stay their own and have their identity and control over it, because they were worried it wouldn't get done enough. And maybe that's from before when the health department was doing it. They wouldn't get out there very often. I don't know
I
the
think the
history on
history
that.
of it was, is there wasn't any mosquito treatment going on out in the county at that point. So then they organized, and I don't know if they organized before Logan City did.
Well,
or
for a
not.
while, because for a while we did Mendon too. For a while, we did Mendon too with that over there, so it was a little bigger, but
We probably talked mosquitoes enough,
Yeah.
Gina.
I think so. I'm gonna go.
You got all your questions answered since we've never had him come before.
Just a thought on aerial spraying, just to put a plane up is 10 grand. 10 grand just to put a plane up, whether it works or not, so
Wow.
that's why we haven't done aerial.
We believe in drones around here, even if the federal government doesn't.
Well, thank you, Nathan and Richard, for letting us learn a lot about mosquitoes. I'm kind of feeling itchy right now, actually. We talked so much about bugs. Okay, so we'll move to item 6F. This is the proposed sale of a Cinnamon Creek block. I guess it's the Cinnamon Creek block, and this is in the Sitla Trust Land, and we have Ben Steyerman here to tell us about that.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here.
See, we have a little visual to go along with our presentation today. Can I steer? Okay. All right, so in order to explain the Cinnamon Creek sale, I thought I could provide a little bit of context by telling you who we are at Trust Lands and what we do. So, let's get my bearings here. So a little history. The idea of trust lands began with Thomas Jefferson, who believed a strong democracy is founded upon education for everyone. The idea was to fund education using income from the land to supplement public schools. Utah received sections 216, 32, and 36 in each 6x6 mile township for public schools. Other institutions were granted fixed amounts of land throughout the state. Today, Sitla manages approximately 3.4 million surface acres and a total of 4.4 million acres along with the surface estate. Since 1994, when Sitla was created, Sitla has followed standard trust principles and manages trust lands with undivided loyalty to and for the financial support of the trust land beneficiaries. In language unique to Utah, the Supreme Court has ruled that the trust beneficiaries do not include other governmental institutions, the public at large, or the general welfare of the state. We are divided into 4 business groups that generate revenue for the trust. The oil and gas group, the mining group, real estate planning and development, and the surface group, which I belong to. As you can see, we have some examples of some of the revenue generating activities on trust lands. Since Sitla's inception in 1994, Sitla has contributed over $2 billion to the permanent fund. The fund now exceeds $2.6 billion and is managed by SITFO, the School and Institutional Trust Funds Office. Over $93 million was distributed to the beneficiaries last year, with nearly $89 million going to support public schools. So now we can talk about the Cinnamon Creek block, which is why I'm here, and specifically the proposed sale of the Cinnamon Creek block. So the block itself is 8,100 acres. The land was acquired through 3 separate exchanges with private landowners, as well as the reservoir land grant that we received at statehood. The primary use of the block has been grazing. In 2021, so far, we've produced about less than $20,000 in revenue off of grazing. So the potential sale of the Cinnamon Creek block will have a price tag, a minimum bidding price of $19.5 million, and will take place in November of this year. The revenue that we would generate from this sale would produce approximately $1.5 million in disbursements to our beneficiaries each year, just based off of the sale. And that's an endowment fund, so this will be distributed in perpetuity as long as our SITFO funds are performing. The sale will be subject to any of the current encumbrances and cultural reservations. Cultural resource survey was conducted on the block this summer to identify those resources. And with that, I would invite you to visit our website to learn a little bit more about trust lands. And also, any other questions about the sale, we'll be posting information as it becomes available, but most of this information is on the website as well. And also happy to answer any questions if you have any.
One question I have is, if you have a bid of $19.5 million, and this is an endowment fund, how are you going to produce $1.5 million per year into perpetuity? That's a lot larger return than anybody else is getting on.
We're producing about 7.5% per year on our investment fund through CITFO. So at that, we're just shy of the $1.5 million on that. Obviously, there's going to be years where we may have worse years and somewhere we have better, but over the course of the last 27 or so years, that's about what we've averaged.
Talk to you about what you're investing in, because
That's to invest.
than the 1.5% I'm getting.
Yeah, you and me both. If I could pick the brains of the folks over there at CITFO, I'd have all $2,000 in my savings account fully invested.
Yeah, I have a question on this Cinnamon Creek thing. Where is the reservoir up there? You never show that on the thing. Does that include?
The reservoir is not part of the cell. If you go back to the map, I don't know if it kind of shows you where we're at in the county, but we're a bit east of Porcupine Reservoir. Is that the reservoir you're referring to? So we're not quite there. I'd say we're at least several miles east of that. Cinnamon Creek originates on the property and does flow into Porcupine Reservoir.
The one question I have, and that is we have been in a discussion for many years with the Cinnamon Creek LDS Girls Camp, and they want us to shut down the road. Does this have any effect whatsoever on that county road that goes through there?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm familiar with the road that would affect the girls' camp.
Well, the road goes all the way around Porcupine Dam, and when it gets to the far east part of it, then it goes on up through until it gets up to the old silver mine.
Molly,
Would they refer to that as the Mineral Point Road?
Well, yeah,
Point
it is.
Road.
Okay. This road does go through the property, and we've sent a notice. Probably why David invited us to come speak, but we've sent a notice to the county. I believe let's see, I think I noted here, gives 30 days with a September 17th deadline to make road claims for the county, at which time we would evaluate those claims.
Well, we already own the road. We aren't really talking to you about whether you get to shut us off or not. Is that what I'm understanding?
This road, the Cinnamon Creek campground is paramount to the north of this Sitla property. This property is more up toward the south end of the Davenport Road.
Yeah, it's
We
accessed by
border
Davenport.
And we will be looking at making some claims of county roads on the Sitla.
At this time, there's no easements for the roads, so we would be evaluating those. If the county made the claims, we would work with the county to evaluate them and see. But at this time, we don't have any claims to evaluate and haven't discussed any.
Can I ask what inspired the release of this, or the sale of this land?
So typically when we sell land, we have a proponent that approaches us and inquires about the sale of the land. That was the case here, and the underwhelming performance of the block in producing revenue for our beneficiaries made this a good candidate for a sale.
So if you're with the Circus Division, and when you sell this, does that open it up to all of those other things that land can do? Mining, whatever else, water rights, what's involved in all of that?
So with the land is currently open to all of those things, since it's trust lands. Once it becomes, or if it becomes privatized, depending on who buys it, the land would be subject to the zoning in the area. So if it was zoned properly, those would be the current uses.
Does this neighbor is it contiguous to any other Sitla lands?
No, it's not.
Okay.
This is the only Sitla land in this area.
So it is currently surrounded by private?
With the exception of the small red square you can see on the map, that's the only public land that I'm aware of, and that's owned by the Division of Wildlife Resources.
And the rest of it, that it surrounds it is?
It's private land.
It's all private, okay, for sure.
Will this only be sold as a block, or is it something that you consider breaking into pieces?
We have considered our options in breaking it into pieces and felt that selling it as a block was in the best interest of our beneficiaries.
Okay. Any other questions?
I had 100 of them, and I don't even know how to ask them, but we'll go on.
Sorry, what's that?
You have a
I said
question?
I have 100 questions, but I don't know how to answer them because I don't understand really well.
I'd be happy to answer questions if you'd like to reach out. I know David has my information, but I'm happy to leave my information with you as well, and we're happy to.
Great, if we have other questions.
Absolutely.
we can call you.
And I'd invite you to visit the website. We have a lot more information than I covered regarding the cell that you can find there.
Yeah, how, you mentioned there's like $22,000 that comes in on grazing,
Yeah,
and so how are they, I mean, there's grazing rights then to this property. Are they just basically told, find it a different place?
we operate through a grazing permit, and the permits would not be conveyed with the property, so they would be terminated along with the sale unless the new landowner chose to continue the grazing on the property.
Ouch.
We do try to give them as much notice as possible so they can make arrangements and get that worked out.
Well, if they have grazing rights into that, then there's value. They've got to be then basically paid for their value of what they own on that.
So they don't technically have like a grazing right. It's a permit that we issue that allows them to be there. So the SITLA has the grazing rights on the property.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Ben, thank you
Great.
very much. Appreciate you being here.
I'll drop a card with you before I leave.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 7A, emergency operations, and we have Will Lusk here to talk about that with us.
Why are they even telling us?
Be nice. It's kind of a sudden thing.
Council, it's good to be with you tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to come and be in front of you again. It's been 6 months since I was last here, and we were discussing the new Tri-County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which identified all the different types of hazards and disaster types that could face Cache County. And tonight I appreciate Gina giving me the invite to come and talk to you, good folks, as well as to Cache County administration on operations and what goes on and what is most importantly the council's role when disaster strikes. Probably the most often asked question of me by citizens in Cache County is, does Cache County have an emergency operations plan? How are we prepared for disaster? And the answer I love to give them is yes, Cache County does have a plan. And they always ask, can I see it? And I said, sure. Do you want to see the long version or the short version? I don't know when was the last time you read the long version. I hope somewhere in your tenure as you've come on the council, you've had an opportunity to take a look at it. I think I included it in your packet as one of your materials. Don't know if you spent some time reading the long version. It does work really great for sleep apnea and for other sleep deprivation diseases. Most of the time, though, I tell people, here's the short version. Hopefully this one made it into your packet as well.
It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I will.
What I saw, it's like 5,000 little.
We need to rescan it, don't we? Because
Yeah.
it got overlapping, the text is overlapping. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that.
I actually have here.
It was going every which way.
You've been at the disaster center that we have. I've been there, once or twice?
That's a good thing to be reminded of.
Sorry, I forgot to mention it.
I've been to it twice.
I apologize, that one didn't work out for you.
Okay.
It is a very important document, and I will admit to you, it is a very busy document. In trying to get a grasp around all the potential possibilities, the things we do and can provide in times of disaster, and boil it down to a single sheet, it took a little bit of doing. But let me go through that with you quickly and get to what brings you and me around a common table. The very basis of any plan for the longest time in the United States of America has been individual preparedness. Individual preparedness always has, I think always will be, the foundation of any good emergency response plan, because the plan is only as good as its weakest link. And if the weakest link is the individuals that either perform it or that are going to receive it, then the plan needs some work. But individual preparedness, my individual preparedness in my role and your individual preparedness in your role as a council is paramount to being able to answer the page and go to where the trouble is to take care of our responsibilities. The month of September is National Preparedness Month. And as the county emergency manager, I would endorse to you good individuals, as well as to all our citizens, to take advantage of the month of September and take a look at your personal disaster response plan. Because it is important, as we have just lived through the last almost 2 years now of COVID. Hopefully, every citizen has come to the realization that disasters can affect me. Most of the time in the past, when we talk wildland fire, people who live in the middle of the city say, well, that has nothing to do with me. I don't have to worry about wildland fire. I don't need to be prepared. When we talk floods, those that live far away from streams and creeks say the same thing. I don't live in a floodplain. I don't have to worry about floods. Preparedness has no context in my life. Similarly, when we talk earthquakes, sometimes people naively think, I don't live on an earthquake fault line. I haven't experienced an earthquake in my lifetime. I don't know when the next one's coming. Individual preparedness has no context in my life. But if anything that has happened, and hopefully has happened in our lives with the COVID pandemic, is that every human life has been touched and affected some way. And I hope that everybody will not quickly forget what they have just experienced the last 2 years and put time and effort into individual, family, and community preparedness. Because long and short of the subject, disasters can happen anytime, any place, anywhere. And regardless of what we may personally believe, they will affect us somehow, some shape, some form. So having a disaster plan not only personally is good, but also having a jurisdictional plan is important, as well as it is a requirement. Last legislative session in the state of Utah placed the responsibility on every county and every community in the state of Utah to do two very important things. One, have a designated emergency manager within their jurisdiction, and two, have an adopted emergency operations plan. Cache County has been in great shape for many years in both those regards. Our current county emergency operations plan, last, I think, brought before the county council, has a 2012 date on it. Similarly to what you just saw and experienced with the Mosquito Abatement District, this is probably a document we ought to be reviewing a little bit more closely, a little more often. And whether it's the long version or the short version, it is a very important document, both for us legally as well as for temporal and personal safety. But bottom line is individual preparedness. Then we start working up the middle chain of the single sheet here, and that is the National Incident Management System. Here we are, almost 20 years since 9/11. We learned a lot of things as a country on September 11th, 2001. Mainly that similarly disasters can occur anytime, any place, and they don't always have to occur someplace else. They can occur right in our backyards. And if we do nothing more too in September as we observe National Preparedness Month, may we contemplate what we have learned and where we have come since 2011, and remember that lives were lost, that we learned important lessons, and keep remembering that. There is a chain of both assistance and requesting of resources, as well as a hierarchy of direction and control in times of disasters. Each one of our incorporated cities has opportunity and jurisdiction within their own boundaries. Similarly, we as a county have a twofold responsibility. First to the unincorporated areas of Cache County, and then as a link between the incorporated cities and the state of Utah. One of the also handouts in your packet should have been a disaster threshold indicator. Disaster thresholds and the dollars, yep, are one way that the levels above us decide whether or not we qualify for further assistance, and or whether we also qualify for reimbursement and help coming from both the state of Utah and ultimately the federal government. That threshold indicator for Cache County is a very important one because, yep, the two levels above us want to make sure that, one, we have either incurred at least that minimum amount of damage and or spent at least that amount of money responding to disasters within our jurisdiction before they are going to do what they need to do to bring help our way. It is not the only indicator, but it is a very important indicator that they look at. Do we qualify for assistance? Similarly, I believe as a council too, we would want to do similar with the communities under our care, that before they come rushing to the county and wanting to be bailed out or brought back whole, as close as whole can be, that they have put forth effort both at their level as well as have worked with their citizenry to do as much as they can. But a disaster declaration is a very important role that both our county executive as well as you, the legislative body of Cache County, plays. We exercised that muscle during COVID. We exercised it in 2017 for the rain on snow events. We exercised it in 2011 for the similar floods, and once more, a very important role we play in both extending the declaration through the county on up to the state, as well as give notice ourselves when we need that additional assistance from both the state of Utah and the United States federal government. And so that is a very important role. We have a brand new county attorney, and not that I don't love to see John in action, but it would be okay if we didn't have to exercise the declaration for a while. But hopefully coming up in September with our training that is coming, we'll get an opportunity to have him work with David and exercise that muscle. Because like all skills, if you don't use it very often, it goes dormant. And when you need it in a hurry, if you can't remember what to do and how to do it, you don't do it very well. Hopefully the media's not here. nobody likes looking like a clown in front of their peers, especially when disaster strikes. And so when it comes to disaster exercising, ladies and gentlemen, so that we don't look like clowns when disaster strikes, we do need to take time out of our busy schedules and exercise our roles and jump through those hoops so that when disaster strikes, we don't get caught wearing the red nose. Coming up in September is a great opportunity for both you as a council as well as the rest of our administrative staff in Cache County. We have two wonderful opportunities to both learn your role as well as to exercise some of the skills that you would perform in a disaster. Before Craig Butters left us a couple years ago, he and I put together an application back to Emmitsburg, Maryland, to the Emergency Management Institute. Over the last quarter of a century, both Cache County and communities within Cache County have participated in the integrated emergency management courses offered by FEMA. And we usually put everybody on an airplane and take you back to Emmitsburg, Maryland for a week, and you'd go to class and you get to practice emergency operations in a mock emergency operations center, and then come back home. Well, with COVID and the way things are going, we don't have the luxury of putting you all on an airplane and flying you back to Emmitsburg. Not that we couldn't do that down the road in a few years when things get a little better. But the next best thing is we are bringing them here. On September 20th through the 23rd, they will be here in Cache County to conduct that integrated emergency management course with an earthquake scenario emphasis. I extend the invite to you. In your packet is both the course agenda as well as the flyer with the registration link on that. I realize you are very busy people with much to do. If 4 days is too much to ask, I wholeheartedly understand and won't ask more of you other than maybe one other thing. Part of that course on September 22nd from 8:30 to 11:30 that morning is that hands-on exercise. It is my hope and desire to exercise our skills as Cache County administration in that exercise to do those things that we don't do very often. To sit around a common table, there will be probably about 75 inchects come into the organized group in the Emergency Operations Center in regards to a 6.0 earthquake on the East Cache fault line. Unbeknownst to David, the fault line runs right below his house. And our exercise scenario is an earthquake 1,000 feet deep below his house on that fault line. He is very much interested in what we are going to do and how we are going to do it, and has put forth his support to us as a county administrative organizations to both participate and to practice our skills. Had a great opportunity to meet with David and Bryce and review the proposed emergency operations annex to go into our county emergency operations plan. Hopefully that was included in your packet as well. If not, I do have hard copies. In that emergency operations annex, it outlines in a little bit more detail just who are the parties that sit around the tables in that emergency operations center and some of the things that they do. We would be certainly looking to you, Gina, and the council chair as being a part both of that organization if or when the need arises, as well as for our exercise. We'll also be extending the invite to the county administrative officers, those both elected and who serve as department heads, to be a part of the organization that day. And you can read in that annex more of the details of who those people are. We have a warm-up workshop coming, and I apologize, this didn't make it into your packet. On September 2nd at 3:30 p.m. there is a workshop. Oops, sorry, it's right here.
Did you say 3:30?
Yes.
And is that down, where's that at?
At the
Cache
County Emergency Operations Center.
At the sheriff's?
Yeah, the Emergency Operations Center is located at the Cache County Sheriff's Office. I'll pass that around. I will send you, council, the invite along to the rest of the elected officials. Here, Janine, here's the handout on that. As an opportunity, over the last quarter of a century, being in the emergency manager capacity, first for Logan City and now for Cache County, I have never been a fan of holding an exercise and expecting people to do things without notice, and two, without prior preparation and practice. And I realize too that many of you have never had an opportunity to either practice the role or learn what that role truly is. So in preparation for both the course and for that exercise, we're having a workshop at the Cache County Emergency Operations Center at 3:30 p.m. for an hour to both orient the staff and the representatives of what an Emergency Operations Center is and what goes on in an Emergency Operations Center. Certainly that will also be repeated in the four-day course and go into much more detail, but I realize too, schedules are busy, so also if you don't have time to go to the course, at least come to the workshop and also participate in the exercise. One other final item that was in your packet is this nice little brochure right here entitled Cache County Council Guide to Disaster Operations. Once more, a great opportunity to learn about disasters and disaster management concepts, and at your own leisure has been this little guidebook has been put together for you as a council. My predecessors did a really good job in putting it together, and I once more endorse it and would recommend to you to spend a little time in that book to come up to speed on what might be expected or what may be asked of you as a council representative in such a disaster. 16 years ago, as the new emergency manager for the city of Logan, my first budget workshop, I told the Logan City Council back then, and Carl, I don't know if you were on the council at the time. Yep, I put in a requisition for a crystal ball. And unfortunately, it never got funded, and I'm not going to bother you good people with the same request. But the bottom line is if as an emergency manager I truly had a crystal ball, I could tell you exactly when, where, and how every disaster was going to strike Cache County. And we could be prepared. Similar to Y2K, many of you remember Y2K. And whether you think it was a hoax or not, it affected the entire world. The amazing thing about Y2K was we knew exactly when it was going to hit and what it was going to hit, and we had time prior to Y2K to solve all the problems, so that when the stroke of midnight came and we went from 1999 to the year 2000, and it wasn't a disaster. Why? Because we knew everything we needed to know beforehand. We had practiced, we had prepared, and it was almost a non-event. I wish that every disaster would, could, and should be like Y2K, but unfortunately, I don't have magic crystal balls. We have river gauges, we have SNOTEL sites, we have the National Weather Service that give us alerts, watches, and warnings when storms like last Saturday night at 6:30 roll through our valley. We can put you in contact with those watches and warnings, and I hope to, on your own, that you also have a way of receiving those personally, whether it's an app on your phone or an email that you get. There are many ways that we do get information from both our partners and ways we teach and train our citizens how to get information from us. On this side of our busy chart, it's entitled the Joint Information System. We work together with all our partner organizations to gather information and disseminate information on what to do, how to do, and when to do it. You have seen that Joint Information System working the past 2 years, being led by our counterparts in the Bear River Health Department, as well as the state of Utah. The Bear River Health Department website has probably received more hits and likes and links in the last 2 years than all the other years combined, as well as the coronavirus.utah.gov website. That is the Joint Information System working at its finest. The same information is disseminated from the top down to the very bottom, and every citizen has an opportunity to read it, peruse it, and be aware of how this particular disaster can affect them. We are blessed in Cache County with options. You'll see under that Joint Information System that we have various options that we can employ as a county for getting information out to the good people in our county. Whether it's telephones over wireless emergency alerts, utilizing the integrated public alert warning system, utilizing the Code Red reverse 911 system employed by our dispatch center, NOAA weather radio, social media, our county website, cachecountyalert.org, and other websites out there. And certainly last but not least, our ham radio operators and or going door to door with flyers. When disaster strikes, we have any and all of those options available to us, and which one we choose often depends upon, one, the direction that we receive from administrative staff, as well as the needs and necessities of the particular disaster. Once more, we teach and hope that our citizens are aware and will actually utilize them when disaster strikes. Our dispatch center is going to be doing some public education events also coming up in September. They are starting with the city of Hyde Park to do both a door-to-door campaign as well as a test of the Code Red system. Our Code Red system here in both Logan and Cache County has typically been based upon the landline telephone book. And as many of you know and maybe even experience personally, your telephone number to your home has changed and is no longer in that landline telephone book. If the dispatch center had to reach out to you with an urgent warning or a life safety message, could they get a hold of you? Hopefully, if you have registered your cell phone number with the dispatch center, they can do that. Our only other option would be to utilize the emergency alert system utilized by the federal government and reach out and touch everybody. You saw that one in play during the COVID disaster when the state was trying to get hold of people crossing the border. Whether it was a nuisance or whether you actually participated in it, I'm not going to take a poll or a vote, but that was that system at work. It's not a very good system, but it works.
Well, are they going to be doing other cities or just doing Hyde Park?
Yep, the dispatch center would like to do a different city every year and or at various times of the year. We partner with them as the Emergency Management Office to also get that word out, and I would encourage not only the incorporated cities, but our unincorporated areas too, to participate with our dispatch center to both make sure that our good citizens are registered with that timely and important service. I know there's hardly a soul now that doesn't walk around with something like this in their pocket or purse. And the last thing some want to have is the government knowing where they're at. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the only way to reach out and touch everybody with life-saving information. And if we choose to change the notification setting in our phone, then we cut ourselves off from that life-saving information.
So people can sign up for that, how?
By going to the dispatch center website.
Okay.
Or calling the non-emergency number, 755, 753-7555. Yep, the non-emergency number for the dispatch center, and talking with the good representatives there to make sure that their information is in there. The quickest and the easiest way is go to the Logan Dispatch website and follow the link that'll allow you to put both your cell phone information in there as well as other information. The dispatch center also has the way of capturing critical medical information should you have that particular need within your family. And once more, it's information you enter that's kept on file there in case you ever call 911 and an EMT, a paramedic, a fire truck, or a police car comes to your home. They can come with additional information to even better be able to serve, protect, and take care of you.
Does the council have any other questions you want to ask? Thought I better
Super.
check with you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and we're excited to learn more and be part of this earthquake event, and hopefully we'll never have to use the knowledge that we get, so.
Super. Absolutely. If we never have to use it, it's still okay, but if or when we do have to, it's sure nice to know. Thank you for your time and
Very much.
Yep.
Okay, we will now move to item 7B, the Cash, Cheese, and Dairy Festival with Ron Borkman. I always mispronounce your name, Ron, I'm sorry. Cash Event Center Director.
I haven't had to walk for a minute, so. All right. Well, hello, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you now. I'm approaching you about the Cache Valley Cheese and Dairy Festival. Sounds like a pretty common thing, but how many of you have ever attended one? This is Cache Valley. No? It's about time, isn't it?
Never in Cache Valley.
Never in Cache Valley. There's been a few out there, yes. So, first annual, and it's coming up 10 days away. Wanted to tell you a little bit about it and then maybe make a proposal, I hope. First off, there will be at this festival sampling booths by a lot of the local businesses, many cheeses to partake of, milk, ice cream, and other type of foods that go along with that. I don't know how many of you went to school and learned to say the word charcuterie. I learned it as charcuterie because it's French, but charcuterie boards are a big thing now. So there will be those kind of foods as well. We're going to have some educational booths also put on by some of our local companies about what they do and how they do it. Kind of a farm-to-table kind of a presentation. There will also be the University Extension presenting data and facts, things that we can learn a little bit more about our valley and how the dairy and cheese industry impact our economy and our valley. We're going to have local vendors, a few, with artisanal, a lot of good words tonight, fare for sale. We're going to have demonstrations on milking, butter churning, charcuterie board presentation. There will be a sensory cheese workshop for the novices that don't really understand how cheese works. Food trucks, and the food trucks also have a theme of dishes that are cheese related. So there will be a best cheesecake in Cache Valley contest. We'll have local musicians playing on the stage through the day. Plus we've invited the Salzburg Alpines, who specialize in the alpenhorns. If you've ever seen those before, they would pretty much fill up this front area. And they're going to have not only a presentation that they'll perform later in the evening Friday, but they will be doing workshops the next day, giving out awards to who can make the best noise on an alpenhorn. The best news about this whole thing for me is as of about 10 o'clock this morning, we had adequate sponsors to cover everything. And up until then, it was a little bit of a tug of war. But we're good now, and one of the things that leads me into is I would like to, at this budgeting preparation time, I would like to propose that the county consider including in their budget for next year and possibly years going forward an amount that can be set aside for the Cache Valley Cheese and Dairy Festival. The amount that I would be short this year, if it had not been covered by the Cache Valley Visitors Bureau, is the part that relates to media, advertising, and getting this thing off the ground. And when you look at all the expenses and what would need to be to carry it forward, what number I have in my head is $10,000. So I present that to you as a possibility for consideration in next year's budget. And I really feel like this is one of the things that has been lacking in our community, one of the things that we needed to have. One of the things that I remember as a young boy was my uncle out in Mendon, Idaho, had a few dairy cows, and I got to go out for my first time ever, and you know, I was a novice, and so he grabbed the item and he squoze, and I got to drink milk straight out of the cow, and it tasted unusual, but it was a good experience. And I've always had an affection for that, for dairy farmers. I know that they need recognition. A couple of the other things this year I need to explain that are going on. On Friday night, we have just prepared and have sent out postcards to all of the dairymen, what did we say dairymen? Dairy farmers in this. Okay, here's how we decided it. It's all of the dairy farmers who supply milk to this valley that we have tracked from Dairy Farmers of America, Gosner's Unique and Exclusives, and those lists have been combined, and we've invited them all to a Dutch oven dinner Friday night over at the event center, which is when that special performance will happen. And we've been able to cover 2 tickets per household. And then the next night we're going to have a special buy ticket pitchfork fondue dinner. If you've ever had one of those or heard about it, it involves steak and it involves Dutch oven cooking and usually chocolate cherry Dutch oven dessert and things like that. But it's a unique way of cooking steaks a la fondue. And so we're hoping that a lot of people sign up and do that. Are there any questions?
We bring our own pitchfork?
We might have to inspect it first.
That's the steak I want.
Ron, what is the date of this event?
It is September 3rd and 4th, with the 4th being the public event. The evening of the 3rd being the dairy farmers, basically recognition dinner event.
Okay, and so council, the question that I had about this is this something that we should ask Ron to apply for RAPS for?
That's just what I was thinking. I would think.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That would be better than just putting a line item in our budget, take it out of RAPS.
I think this is something that would explode into the Swiss days, you know, the kind of thing, kind of an event.
And the other question I had was, when we talked earlier, you were still a little bit unsure about some of these sponsors. Do we still need a cushion of maybe $3,000, up to $3,000 in case some of those don't come through?
I think as far as booking entertainment and being able to cover expenses like that, it would, yes.
Okay, council, would you be willing for us to put that in our budget opening? Because we don't have this in our budget, but up to $3,000 to help fulfill any sponsors that don't come through, and so he has a little bit of leeway there.
Is there a reason we can't open and use some excess funds of the RAPS? That's what I'm thinking, there's
Yeah,
money
we've
there.
got excess funds.
Just use some RAPS funds?
That's what I think. Or use
tourists.
some tourist fund.
Tourist funds too.
Okay.
I guess I'm all worked up about this in my mind because I'm not exactly sure, Ron, if this is the first Cash, Cheese, and Dairy Festival. This is the first dairy festival we've had. Who is the parent person over you? Where do you get your funds from to do this?
Well, the funds that we have created for this first one have been mostly local sponsorships. The product is being offered as a donation from those sponsorships. If I'm answering what you're asking me.
Well, I'm just wondering is this a dream child of yours to all of a sudden come and do a cheese festival here in Cache?
Well, I kind of made it personal, didn't I? Give you an idea, the people who were on, this committee and with the county who hired me, our prior executive, one of the first things we did when we had a meeting in his office over here was he had the thought that maybe that was something that was lacking in this county and something we needed to have. And it was kind of like I made the Boy Scout sign and said, I will do everything I can to bring that to fruition. We would have had it last year, and we had bigger plans last year at the first, but that kind of went away in 2020. And as a result, I think some of the challenges of getting everybody on board this year are still a little bit affected by that.
Probably so.
Is there any objection then from the council to look into using the tourist funds or RAPS funds up to $3,000 in case Ron needs them to make up the difference?
Good with it.
We gotta put it on the agenda, so I would suggest that we go ahead and do it, so that it's public notice, and then we can discuss it.
Okay, sounds good, we'll do that. Is there anything else, Ron?
Well, it's been sitting in my mind because I happen to work in the most beautiful place on earth. If you've ever been to any other fairground on earth, you'll find that it's hard to beat ours. And I don't know how much data got disseminated from this fair. We all said it was great, it was good. I know Dave probably knows some good numbers, but the livestock auction had almost a 35% increase over last year. It was $750,000. We had increases in almost every area in entry in the fair except for 4-H, but that's because they limited certain things that really were kind of, Anyway, so as much as 100% in art and photography, 40% in home arts, and just a huge rally in terms of the people who participated. So I just need to bring that up and say, we have a great county, and we have great participants, and sky's blue.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Okay, we now move to item 8A. And what this is we usually do this. So hey, John, do we need to move into the Board of Equalization to set these? Okay, so first I'll entertain a motion to move into the Board of Equalization.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to move into the Board of Equalization. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so Diana Schaefer has asked us to extend the deadline for those tax relief applications from the deadline of September 1st to December 31st. So the chair will entertain such a motion if the council desires.
I'll make a motion to extend the deadline to December 31st.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to extend the deadline for the 2021 tax relief filing applications from September 1st to December 31st of this year. Any further discussion?
Is that, do I understand it, is that the first deadline is given to us basically by the code?
Yes, but we're able
We
to,
just extend it every year anyway?
yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. You're correct,
It doesn't mean anything?
pretty much.
Okay. I'm in favor of it. Give them more time.
Okay.
Helps, you bet.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The second thing we need to do is set the Board of Equalization hearing dates, and I have passed around that sign-up sheet. And besides the dates given, I messed up and forgot to say the 14th. So if someone would like to make, whoever would like to make this motion, if you'll add in the 14th as well, that would be appreciated.
Of September, is that?
Of September,
I
yes.
think you communicated with me that the dates of the 14th and the 16th, wasn't it?
Yes, but couldn't find anyone for the 16th. That's when we were at USAC. And you weren't be able to be there, and others are gone, and so we would only have one person available, and we need two, so.
So are we gonna do the 14th?
Yeah, we're gonna do the
That's what you're saying
14th in
now?
the afternoon, yes. But you and Nolan are able to do that.
Well, when I came to meeting and I seen those dates, it didn't have the 14th, and I thought, I wonder what she asked me to do. I thought it was,
I messed up.
you know, please don't mix me up, because I'm having a hard time, you know, keeping everything in line.
Sorry about that,
When you
Gordy.
get to mine and Carl's age, you kinda can't.
I would have passed it.
So, is that your name that was on the warranty deed that purchased that first 100-year property to get you Century Farm?
In
Yeah,
1960.
Yeah, I think it was.
I'll make a motion that we set the Board of Equalization dates as listed, including the addition of September 14th.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to set the Board of Equalization hearing dates as listed on the agenda with the inclusion of September 14th. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn from the Board of Equalization.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn from the Board of Equalization. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we are now at item 11A, initial proposals for consideration of action, and this is on ordinance 2021-18, which is the ordinance where we would vacate any public right-of-way in that Paradise area where we are putting in a turnaround.
Well, I'll make a motion, I'll waive the rules, make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-18.
Second. Oh, do you wanna add some more to it, or are you gonna read the whole thing?
I was just gonna say, without having to read the whole thing.
I'll read it. Oh, okay. So it's been moved and seconded to waive the rules and approve ordinance 2021-18, which is an ordinance to vacate any public right-of-way south of roughly 9500 South on the road now in place and known as Second West near Paradise, Utah. And as further described on the agenda. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're now going to go back and pick up item number 4, review and approval of the minutes of July 27th, August 3rd, August 10th. There is the original July 27th minutes in your packet, as well as a proposal from me for some edits to those minutes to add some more detail of key points that happened and some other corrections.
Well, I'd move that we approve the minutes of July 27th, August 3rd, and August 10th to include the additional information provided by Gina.
I'll second.
And then with one addition, and that is to change the term counselor to council member in those minutes.
Still seconding that, Carl?
Still second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of July 27th, August 3rd, and August 10th with the changes that I submitted to council, and with the changes of August 3rd and August 10th, change counselor to council member. Or did I state that correctly?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion, council?
I think one thing that I would want to say on the minutes is we've had a lot of changes at the county level in different positions. And, you know, every organization could improve and get better. So we're always looking to find ways to improve. And some of these have changed. Maybe at this point in time, probably the best thing to do for minutes going forward, as we're looking at a new clerk and new minutes, is just to have them be pretty sparse, where have the minutes just say, you know, we started a discussion on this agenda item at this time, and we ended at this time, and here was the result of the vote, and then you can refer back to the videos to get any detail on the minutes, and that way they'd be just pretty dang Spartan. We wouldn't have to worry about did the minutes get corrected or anything. It's just pretty much a guide that you can go back and look at the video or the recording in great detail. Would that be something that y'all would consider looking at as far as changing the minutes up a bit, where it's just more of a guide to?
Can I suggest that the motion's been made and seconded to
Yes.
approve these minutes?
Yes,
Can we
let's
call
call that.
for a vote
Okay.
on that first?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Let's do this, and then we can talk about
Okay.
that. Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Did I hear everyone? Okay. Did you want to make a motion to what you just stated?
Well, I just wanted to probably
Or just
get
poll
some
the
discussion.
council?
Some people are looking.
Well, I mean, the, poor Jess has been run over the washboard pretty thoroughly through this thing. And,
Back and forth.
that's how we set it up to do it in the first place, was as you described. And, I felt that we needed a little more, detail, but maybe not as much as Gina put in. But more back to how Sharon used to do the minutes. Because, it used to say in the minutes, Gordon Zillis commented about this. And then, Executive Zooks explained, or just made a statement like, Executive Zook clarified it. I mean, just short terms. But to have somebody go back and watch a video, seems like anybody in the public who's trying to read these minutes wouldn't get much out of it. And I certainly wouldn't either. That would mean that in improving the minutes, we would be improving also the video as part of the minutes.
Have to.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
So what's your thought on it, is it, Carl, that we need to have just a little bit more detail in it, and what, we're discussing here is we don't wanna have every discussion in the minutes go on and on and on and on, but we wanna get a feel of what was discussed, and I guess that's the direction that we can give our clerk, There's no problem with encourage him to do some different things. But I don't think I don't wanna have minutes that's got 15 pages in it every meeting. I'm exaggerating, but I don't think we want 2 or 3 page minutes.
Minutes should include key points. State law does allow for us to do what Paul suggested. And I've always been a fan of putting in more detail. But it is possible that that could be problematic at this point, because it's in the eye of the beholder, and it might be better to just make them less detailed.
I think it's important too that we don't
Get them too Spartan.
get too Spartan, but we also don't want to make it so that we should make sure that the person who's taking the minutes is impartial, that we don't add or subtract things that are just based on opinion. And that's tough to do. I keep going back to Sharon. I think she did such a great job.
She did.
Taking minutes.
Fantastic.
She did.
She wasn't motivated by anything.
I think Paul's idea has still got some merit to it, and that is if somebody is really, really serious about the subject we discussed, they're gonna go back and view the video, which is okay.
And maybe there's that middle ground where we kind of mark it by the time we started the discussion, and then just make something like Sharon would do that said, Gordon made this comment, or Carl made that comment, or Barbara, who's so verbose in all these meetings, made a comment in every single section. But if we did something like that, kind of marked it where you could see who did make those comments.
I think when we had that situation where I went and did a field trip about the state store, and then you did a field trip after, there should be quite a bit of detail in there about what we did.
That's right. That's right, and Will put on a clown nose, I'd like to see that in the minutes as well.
You want the town comment too?
Yeah, put that in.
The thought, we talk about impartiality or something like that. Has anyone ever thought, or would this be something to think about, of maybe contracting with someone to take the minutes so it doesn't fall on the clerk's office, or?
That's really his job description, so I guess we got to.
He used the records.
John, you wanted to say something?
A couple of thoughts. One is that, he's got a statutory duty to do that. I guess he could contract with someone, or have someone in his office come, but I think that'll be his clerk's purview, since that's his statutory duty. As counsel for the county, I like the idea of the minutes being pretty Spartan, because if they ever were used in a court proceeding or other appeal from a decision that you made, then the parties would not only be able to cite the recording itself, but the minutes, because they're part of the official record. And the more you start talking, the more the minutes might not exactly reflect the recording.
Exactly.
And then you'd have the opportunity for a party to cite minutes that may not be quite what everybody would think the recording said. Not out of the clerk's fault, but the more you try to characterize what happened rather than just have a transcript of what was said, the more opportunity there is to get away from a characterization that everyone would agree with.
Well, Paul, maybe your suggestion then has merit, that it was the legal issues and things that I hadn't considered. I was thinking more from my standpoint as I read through the minutes to see what happened in the meeting and try and remember what was said.
And Dave had.
There is some merit to that, and traditionally minutes have had more. I think as we're in an era where technology allows and state law mandates that every meeting, the recording get preserved as well. I'm okay with there being less. Judge Wilmore spoke in opposition to the proposal. Then let the reader go to the recording to see what he said in opposition.
All it takes is, for example, what one person says and the words that they use to say it, all it takes is one word to be changed. And the meaning of that entire sentence can totally change. You know, it can be downplayed quite a bit by just a little, you know, the gist of it versus, that's why, you know, I think, you know, I won't say vague, but just some, you know, just the details of it, set those aside for the video, and I'm in agreement with what Councilman Borg says, so.
So maybe if we did more of just the pretty Spartan, but maybe who did speak in that time period, like you were saying, John, with, you know, Judge Wilmore spoke in opposition, or Carl spoke in favor, or just made some comments, and that way you would know, okay, I need to go to the recording at this point, because I know these are the people that are speaking, and that's who I'm trying to see what was said in the past.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
provide that kind of detail.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So do we, when we approve minutes, do we also need in that same motion?
To approve the video?
That the video come with it, or is that just a given?
If the clerk just submits minutes that have the times.
The timestamp?
The times on it, then you'd be approving the minutes as submitted, which would include.
Okay.
A history lesson here, I remember years ago that we had this same discussion, and I can remember Darrell Gibbons instructing Jill that he would like a little teeny bit more substance in the minutes, you know, and so it must have gotten really vague, and he just wanted a little bit more. We're at the same discussion here now. So,
And you can figure this out over time, and the county code currently says that the manner and timing of the clerk's submission of the minutes is to be agreed on by the council and the clerk. So you may want to get the clerk's input too, because the manner of doing the minutes is, the county code does talk about an agreement between the council.
Oh, Janine. Thanks, Dave.
I'm sorry. The state really only requires an audio recording as well. The video that we do put on our website is really just a matter of courtesy at this point, but I do see it becoming a requirement down the road. But as of now, it's just an audio recording is required.
Does the audio and video kind of match up time-wise? Are they different? Do we take the, you know, because I know if you do like a recorded Zoom meeting, they'll give you a video and an audio, but they match up time-wise. Is that kind of the same thing here?
The audio is actually just taken from the video.
Okay.
So
So they would match up.
Thank you, Janine. That's good to know.
Well, that's,
Looks like we're in agreement then,
Does this make life
what to do,
better?
so,
okay.
okay, all right.
That makes sense, Jess?
I'm in your full support. I'm in your corner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Not gonna go fire someone tomorrow, are you?
All right. Now he's gonna walk.
Oh, before we move on, can I just publicly say, to support Carl's point, Sharon did a masterful job.
she was
So we'll just give her
amazing.
some kudos here. She's not here to get them. She probably won't ever read the minutes. She'll just see there was a timestamp somewhere, but kudos, Sharon. There you go.
and the reason why I brought that up is there was a little bit of direction given years ago, and I think that helped Sharon out, so awfully cool.
Yeah, she was wonderful. Okay, let's move to items under number 12, other business. This Saturday, first, before I go to Saturday, this Friday, there is, sponsored by the Cache Valley Veterans Association, you put this on our pads, didn't you? A live concert with Northern Utah's hottest country rock band. That's what it says. I don't pretend to know that myself. Off-center, it's going to be at Elkridge Park, so I'll be hearing it even if I'm not there, because I live by there. And it's a free concert. If you guys want to go, it's 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And it looks like a fun time. So more details are in your iPad about that. Saturday, August 28th, that's this Saturday at lines up at 3 p.m. is the River Heights Apple Days Parade. We've had a request from River Heights for us to join that parade. Would any of you be available?
I could do it.
I have a family commitment, so I'm not available.
Okay.
I'm not available either.
I'm in paradise that night.
Can you stop by River Heights on the way?
It's my wedding anniversary, I didn't build that in.
Yeah, don't come. I don't think Beth would like that. Okay, I should be able to be there as well. So me and Carl. And I guess David Zook is gonna drive the truck. Okay. All right, then we have the Wellsville's Founders Day Parade, Monday, September 6th. That's Labor Day, 10 a.m.
I will not be there.
Barbara, you won't be there, okay? Any other changes? Okay, we have our council summer social, Saturday, September 11th at 5 at John White's. We'll need to give Nolan directions how to get there.
I've been to John's house.
Okay, oh, good. Did you have anything you wanted to tell us about that?
Not, other than, like I said, it is 9/11, so it's gonna be kind of a patriotic theme. Maybe if everybody could bring something from that date that they kept, or some special remembrance
Oh,
from
neat
that
idea.
day.
Bring my
would be great to
granddaughter's
share.
picture. She was born on that day.
Really?
Your granddaughter was born that day, wow. That's a neat idea.
Yeah,
Barbara, have we got another council meeting before that party, or is this our last
I think this is,
discussion?
let's see. I think it's our last,
September
Was there
13th.
first one in September the 13th?
yeah,
Yeah.
September 13th.
Janine, would you email everybody and remind everybody? I think that half the time we get too busy and we forget what we're supposed to be doing,
And
especially.
also, I'll need to send out a sign-up sheet for who wants to bring what, or does anybody have any special requests as far as salads or desserts or
Has
anything?
John, have you talked with John as to what the main course is gonna be? Is it gonna be prime rib and trout again?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. That'll be delicious. That's always good.
That trout.
Yes.
Great, that's gonna be a
Speaking of
fun
trout,
time.
Trout and Berry Days, the 28th.
That
which
must
is
be where,
Saturday.
that's where Dave's going, right?
That's where I'm gonna be.
And you're gonna be there too?
Man, that's good fish.
That sounds
Yeah.
fun. Okay, we have our USAC Fall Conference, September 14th through the 16th in Midway. Is there anyone else that wants to go? Okay, and then, oh, I forgot, I had drawn this little line and everything, but September 2nd,
Right.
3:30 PM is that workshop warm-up for the emergency management training, and then we've got the emergency management course that whole week, Monday through Thursday, September 20th to the 23rd, and there's details on your iPad if you want to attend and come to that. But then we have the mock disaster. This says Thursday, but I'm pretty sure it's Wednesday, September 22nd. Is that right? It's a Wednesday? That's okay. Just making sure which was correct, the date or the day. From 8:30 to 11:30 a.m., and that's at the Sheriff's Complex. USU Homecoming Parade is Saturday, October 23rd at 10 a.m. Any other takers? Paul, are you going to be there?
I think I'll be.
Probably be there, okay. And then UAC, it will be coming up November 9th through the 12th in St. George. I think everybody's on there. So, great. Okay, let's go to council member reports. Nolan, we start with you.
I don't think I have anything right now. Not aware of anything.
Okay, thanks, Nolan. How about you, Paul?
Same boat, same boat.
Okay, Barbara?
Nothing for me.
Okay, Carl?
Oh, I will
Oh.
state, I'm sorry, that I will be out of town September 13th through the 24th.
Okay. Thank you.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Thanks, Carl. Gordy?
Well, if we're announcing when we won't be around in September, I won't be around the third week of September. So some of this, that one training I won't be here for.
Okay.
But other than that, I'm just looking forward to meeting with everybody and seeing everybody and your spouses and enjoying ourselves.
It will be fun. Okay, Dave?
This is about the first year in 10 that I actually got bit by a mosquito.
Look, where's our guys? They're gone.
It's dead. But,
What have you
serious.
got, bad blood or something?
I think so.
You're sweetening up a
But
little bit, huh?
the other thing, I would like to request a county seat production of Sean Milne. Tell us about economic development stuff, what he's doing and everything. That'd be kind of a cool little report sometime down the road.
Okay,
I want a county seat production.
we're gonna have to pay for that.
Song and dance of all song and dances.
I had something funny to say, but we're on camera.
No, I think that would be a good one to see where we're at, especially the past couple of years has been a roller coaster. But see where we're at, so.
Okay, we can add him onto the agenda. I'm sure he has, I know he has some updates and things he can tell us
That
about.
would be terrific. Just sometime this fall, you know.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Anything else?
It'll keep me awake anyway.
Sit on the front row that day, that'll be fun.
I'll swap him that day. I'll swap
Okay,
that
we'll
day.
do
I've been
that.
looking.
Okay, the only thing that I have is, just want to make the council aware that, so our September 14th meeting, we'll do a budget workshop. The compensation committee, that's kind of a tongue twister, they're meeting, I believe, next week. And so hopefully to get some updates there of what we want to do is for compensation. And then our last meeting, so our second meeting of September on the 28th, we need to decide if we're going to raise taxes or what our rate will be so that the notices can go out in time. So just keep that in mind and read those budgets and come with questions or answers or whatever. Okay, so the next item of business is 14, executive session under Utah Code 52420551C, discussion of pending or reasonably imminent litigation. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we go into executive session.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation, and we'll be meeting right behind us in that room. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we will do that.
Card for you with my contact information.
Thank you.
Hey, absolutely. So feel free to contact me anytime. So.
Okay, great, thanks.
Nate, thanks so much for coming.
Well, thanks for having me up here. This is
You're
so
welcome.
nice.
Yeah, we're not supposed to have favorite senators, but